On November 1st, 1995, 18-year-old Shana Jaros was stabbed to death, and her throat slit during the night. Everyone who spoke to Shana leading up to the murder quickly left town. However, there are no leads in her case. In this video, we will try to figure out who killed Shana Jaros. Shana Marie Jaros was born on July 15, 1977 to her parents Dwayne and Debbie in Litchfield, Illinois, and was the oldest of her 3 siblings. Shana had a younger sister, Janelle, and a younger brother, Stefan. Shana was described by her father as a loving, giving person who was passionate about helping children and the elderly. After graduating from Nokomis High School, 18-year-old Shana had dreams of becoming a nurse, and she was wrestling with the option of becoming a pediatric nurse, or a nurse who helped elderly patients with dementia. Overall, Shana was said to be a normal teenage girl who enjoyed time with her friends, had dreams and aspirations, and would occasionally butt heads with her parents. In 1995, when Shana turned 18, she abruptly decided that she was to be on her own, navigating the world as a new adult, and suddenly moved out of her parents' home. Shana's parents were taken aback by her quick decision, and on numerous occasions attempted to get her to move back home, to no avail. Shana's mind was made up, and with a steady job at Golden Manor Nursing Home, she wanted to see what life would be like, providing for herself. Shana moved into a nearby apartment with a roommate located at 527 South Maple Street in Nokomis, Illinois. On October 31st, shortly after moving into her new home, Shana was excited to throw her first party for Halloween. She had invited friends and also her 10-year-old brother, Stefan. At 9:30 p.m., Dwayne, Shana's father, drove Stefan to his daughter's apartment to drop him off to enjoy the party and trick or treat. Later, Dwayne stated that Stefan went up to the door and noticed that there were 4 people inside: Shana, her roommate Tanya Gilmore, her roommate's boyfriend, Jason Carver, and a neighbor, Billy Malloy. Stefan claimed that the group was sitting around the table, playing cards, and Tanya and Jason were drinking some beer. Everything seemed fine when Shana handed her little brother some candy. He stayed for a while and then went home. The rest of the group enjoyed the party, which ended around midnight. At 6:50 a.m. the next morning, Shana's landlady, who lived next door, noticed that Shana's door had been left open, slightly ajar. Finding this odd, the neighbor stood outside the door and called Shana's name, but there was no answer and no movement within the apartment. Concerned, the neighbor popped her head in and found Shana lying in the living room with a quilt partially covering her fully clothed body. The landlady ran back to her own apartment and phoned the police. When authorities arrived, they took a look at Shana's body. Overall, Shana had been stabbed more than 50 times, with wounds starting at her breasts, up her chest, and neck. Her throat had been slit from ear to ear, and she died from massive blood loss estimated around 4 a.m. The apartment was closed as a crime scene and was searched for 8 hours on November 1st. It was determined there was no sexual assault found, nor any signs of a break-in. That morning, Dwayne had just gotten off his night shift at Hillsborough Bottling Company, and his wife was at work, and the children at school. Dwayne had only been asleep for an hour when his phone rang. He assumed the call might have been about Shana's car that had been wrecked a few weeks back when she lent it to friends, and when he answered, a detective was on the other end. He explained that his oldest daughter was dead, the victim of murder. Shocked at the news, Dwayne immediately called his wife, Debbie, to tell her what had happened. Debbie stated to a news source later, "The worst part is, we sat there all day and no one came. No police. We were just left there not knowing anything. It was terrible. We heard her body laid there until 1 in the afternoon. It was way late before we ever talked to the police." 2 days after the murder, police released a statement that they did not believe the murder was a random act of violence. That idea has changed throughout the decades, and in 2024, the lead detective for the Cold Cases Unit stated that he cannot say whether the act was a random act of violence or not. The roommate, her boyfriend, and the neighbor who attended the party were all questioned, but it appears that police did not consider them suspects. A neighbor who lived on the other side of Shana's apartment stated that at 4:46 she heard shuffling coming from Shana's, but that she didn't hear anyone coming or going from the apartment. No one else heard any screaming or sounds that early morning. In the first 18 months of the investigation, the police received over 100 tips, but they seemed to have led nowhere. Strangely, news reported that everyone who had contact with Shana within the 24 hours leading up to her death had left the state shortly after. Whether this means the 4 people at the party that night, or literally everyone who spoke to her on the day of her murder, it is not certain. Police determined that the murder was overkill, and that she must have known her killer, as it seemed a crime of passion. 200 pieces of evidence were collected and tested, but sadly, nothing came of this. Sadly, police were never able to identify any suspects in Shana's killing, nor have they been able to determine a motive. Nearly 30 years later, there have been no leads on the case, and it has grown cold. Dwayne later stated to a news source that his biggest regret is not following through with his tradition. He wished that night when Shana answered the door to greet her brother, like many times before, that he would have turned his car light on and waved to her. He still holds out hope that one day Shana's killer will be found and brought to justice. And that concludes our coverage of this tragic story. If you found this video informative or thought-provoking, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates on cases like these. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share this video with your friends and give it a thumbs up if you found it valuable. Thank you for watching.